So you're all very welcome, as I said. This webinar, it's all about how you guys, as lecturers, might be able to incorporate AR, VR, augmented reality, virtual reality into your classrooms. And essentially, as I always say, what we're trying to do as part of this project, and this was a joint European project between The Hague in the Netherlands, the University of the Baleares in Spain, and Haaga Helia in Finland, and TU Dublin in Ireland. And it's an Erasmus Plus funded project. 2-year project's coming to its end now. And essentially what we're trying to do with this project is, and as it says here, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to make AR, VR technologies more accessible to the end user. That's you, that's your students, right? So we're trying to use low tech to bring AR, VR technologies closer to you. So our aim wasn't really to use, the newest Apple kind of glasses for whatever $2,500 or whatever. We're using stuff that you can use with a €7 or €8, $7 or $8 Google box, cardboard box, and stuff like that. So very low tech kind of stuff, right? Also the URL for our website, or you can use the QR code if you want to jump onto our project website. There's a lot more resources there, and stories and pictures and all of that. Also the manuals that I'll be talking about later are also posted there. Okay, so just without further ado, I suppose here is most of the members of the team from the various different institutions. Yeah, so there's real people behind this. So as part of the project, what we were trying to do is develop a couple of prototypes, because we were thinking, how best do we get AR, VR technologies closer to people? How can we break down the barriers, right? So what we did was we developed 5 relatively simple prototypes of AR, VR applications. We retested those. We got students to feedback. We tried to improve upon them. We'd actually designed some manuals for lecturers to use and all of that. Okay, the key was really that whatever we were trying to do as that's low tech, and it's very student focused. And the key obviously was to embed it all in education. So as part of, I suppose, the different phases of our project were, in the first instance, and that was the job of our colleagues in Spain, is really just to assess all the different types of technologies that are out there. There's so much different software out there, so many different technologies when it comes to AR, VR. So we kind of really just narrowed it down to a couple of different types of technologies that are easy to use and not expensive, right? Then, I suppose, when we handed over to The Hague as part of the second phase of the project, the guys there were exploring the different types of digital learning spaces, came up with this idea of what are the different prototypes. Then we went on to another phase of carrying lots of different types of research and iterative research, testing, retesting with students. And finally, we sort of moved on to developing some manuals that the teachers, professors in any university in the world can use to implement these types of technologies in the classroom. Okay, so that's really just to give you quite a broad overview of what we were doing. I'm gonna hand over to my friend Jay here, and he's gonna take you through some initial kind of steps that you might want to follow if you're trying to incorporate AR, VR technologies into the classroom. So Jay, it's yours there, if you want.
Thank you, Ralf. Very nice introduction to our journey through the THETA research project over the last 2 years, I believe. Can you believe it's been that amount of time? So what we have here is basically a roadmap for, you could call it a generic roadmap for how we created most of the prototypes. You can see at the center of the circle is the design-based research cycle, starting with a problem, maybe in education, going into a course and saying, lecturers, what are the problems that you face? What are the learning gaps in your course, in your curriculum? And then of moving on from there, doing initial consultation with lecturers to find out, would an immersive experience like augmented reality or virtual reality, have an impact in your class. And just so I can check with the audience, can somebody raise their hand if they're not sure of the difference between those two terms, augmented reality and virtual reality? No? Okay, well, just let me know if we need to explain it as we go along. You can see, yeah, solution design is developing the prototype and then implementing testing with students and evaluating. So on the right-hand side, you can see part one is all about planning the experience. So we go and speak to lecturers, identify a gap in the course or an experience that may be missing to achieve the learning outcome. What is the learning goal? And then from there, we go on and plan an experience using a design thinking template. So when in the course of THETA, we sit together, in a Miro board or in a Google Jamboard and plan what the prototype should look like, looking at learning goals and so on, and developing generic prototypes that could be used across different courses across the 4 institutions. Then we'd create a storyboard or a draft script, and then from there do the recording and so on. So this brings us to, you can go forward as well. It's fine. And this brings us to the next part of the session today, which is describing the prototypes that we ended up developing. The first prototype that we created was called Holographic Chef or Holographic Avatar. And as Ralf mentioned earlier, we initially, in the first phase of the project, we went through various technology platforms that we could use. And we looked at criteria such as cost effectiveness, easy to use, simple to use for lecturers and students. And based on those criteria, the first platform we chose was THETA. And THETA is very good for augmented reality applications. So really creating a digital overlay over the real world, either through the camera view of your phone or using a headset or a tablet, and being able to add an object into your environment. So Holographic Chef, the first port of call and what we wanted to do with it was really help students prepare for working in the kitchen outlets at our different universities, and things such as cutting techniques. Before you get into the kitchen, we often found that first-year students in the practical outlets are not job ready. So how can we prepare them by creating an experience that maybe lets them practice in their own time? And hence the idea of the holographic avatar or holographic chef came into being. And the benefits, as you can see, there are various benefits which I will talk about now. But you can see we're using a green screen and a mobile phone to create this prototype. This was the easiest prototype that we made from all 5 prototypes. It's very fast to create. And it has a fun factor in it as well. So we'd often start with this when we go into training lecturers and train the trainers. We'd often start with this prototype. But you can see the equipment that we have is pretty straightforward, and most schools may not have a green screen, but you definitely have a tripod and an iPhone. The benefits of Holographic Chef is the THETA project came out of the pandemic, and it was all about how could we still connect with students remotely. And the Holographic Chef does that well. It allows you to personally connect with your lecturer. So if the gentleman there, Menno de Vos, was part of our team earlier, if he was a lecturer, you would be able to project him through the camera view of your phone into your space. So he looks like he's in your room, or he is in your wherever your location is, he's there with you. So that's the first thing. Personal connection is quite an important part of it, and being able to project a lecturer or an instructor into your space. Thereafter, we also found that with this prototype, it failed pretty well, and that wasn't a bad thing, because failure is all about learning. And for us, this was a learning process as well. We all weren't, high technology experts in a way. So we were also learning as we went through the process. And we found our use case for this was actually maybe not correct. So cutting techniques, when we tested it with students, we did 2 iterative cycles of testing these prototypes. And we started finding out that the cutting technique of the chef showing how to julienne carrots was actually, we didn't have close-ups of his hands, and we wanted to see how his fingers were being placed. And if you can imagine Jamie Oliver, and the camera angles of a top-down, a front-on shot, we didn't have that. And they actually were questioning why we gave them a 2D experience. So this experience, the 2D video is shot on an iPhone, but that you can project into the camera view of your phone. So they wanted to look around the chef, zoom in on his fingers, look at the angle he was using the knife from, and we couldn't do that with the platform that we had. So we learned a lot about technology choice, use cases. However, holographic chef can be useful for various other options as well. And we found it was more useful for delivering instructions, delivering information, giving information in an engaging way. It was pretty useful for that. So maybe any questions on holographic chef before we go to the second prototype? I see there's 2 questions in the chat. Oh, no, they're not quite questions. If not, yes, we can go to the next one, Ralf. And can you hear me all right there, Ralf, on my audio? Okay, perfect. So this is actually the video of holographic chef. This was the first prototype, which was a tea expert, or sommelier, you would call her, who's telling us about the history of tea. And you can see this was done in UIB in Mallorca, our wonderful partners from there. And we brought in a tea expert, tea sommelier from Hotelschool The Hague, Amsterdam, and she's actually there with you in UIB in Mallorca. So, that's really, the benefit of that is, feeling a closer connection to your instructor. Imagine during pandemic, getting a pandemic-proof curriculum. This is also a nice way for virtual tours. So you'd also have a QR code that you could use and zap a QR code, and you'd get that instructor in your phone screen. So imagine doing a virtual tour that way with different QR codes around your campus or around your outlet. That's easily done, or maybe a museum tour and so on. So various applications here for holographic chef. Can we go to the next one? Maybe, yeah, perfect. So holographic chef, now we move to our second easiest prototype to make. And you'll see these in the manuals. Ralf shared a QR code in one of his earlier slides of our THETA website, where we've got all the manuals for you guys. So the manuals on how to make THETA, holographic avatar, holographic chef, and Matterport are all there, step-by-step how to do it and what equipment you need and so on. So coming to Matterport, the virtual tour, this was made by our colleagues at UIB. And we got together and thought, okay, so, how can we give students the skill of doing a room assessment if they're checking a room and preparing a room for a new guest? And how can we do that without them actually being in the room, being in the hotel, and maybe, again, getting them ready for, to perform on the job, so job readiness. And we thought of Matterport, and Matterport's got a history of being a real estate platform. So it's actually for showing apartments and houses to be sold or rented. So that's where it comes from. So it's very aesthetic and beautifully, it really creates a beautiful experience for the students. And, we've had a lot of positive feedback from industry actually on this platform in particular, because it's aesthetically not beautiful to look at and move through. So what Matterport does is you can stay there. Thanks, Ralf. What Matterport does is basically allow you to do a walkthrough of a room. And not only that, it also allows you to embed images, text, video, hyperlinks into that room. And it's made in a very simple way. You would take a 360 image. So with a 360 camera, and there's various types that you can, with most 360 cameras, it should work. We use the Insta360 1R. And you can see we've taken various 360 images. Each of the circles, if you look at the top left image, you can see those little circles. Each of those circles is a 360 image that's taken every 2 meters. And after taking multiple shots, Matterport platform builds the AI, its AI algorithm, or AI model will build a 3D model using your 360 images of your space, right? And you can see the dollhouse view at the bottom there. That's the 3D model. And what it lets you do is jump into that 3D model and jump around and move through the room, but also give you information about how to maybe prepare the bed, or how to check whether all the things are in the bathroom, or and so on and so forth for a room assessment. If you guys scan your QR code there on your phones, you can experience it. Obviously, it looks very different from what you will see when you use it on your desktop, laptop, or on a VR headset like Oculus Quest 2 or above. But you will see that experience and how it lets you do a virtual tour, but also embed information and move through a space. We've also tested this with a projector, with the HD 4K projector, and we've also got very good feedback on cognitive load in comparison to other mediums. Yeah, so any questions on Matterport and possible use cases for it? And hopefully you are going through it on your phone now and just seeing how it appears on your phone, but it is very different on the different mediums. But yeah, think of virtual tours, any space that you want to show to someone. You could definitely use Matterport. Okay, so I'm going to leave you there, and I'm going to hand over to Pasi, our expert from Haaga Helia, to take you through WalkVR.
Thank you, Chet. Thank you, Ralf, for the introductions. So we jump back to the back office and back of the house, and but we still stay in the same topic of readiness to work, and especially for the first-year students, people with a limited language skills, etc., etc. And how can we make sure that the first 2 or 3 hours in a professional kitchen are safe? And that's when we came up with a scenario of how to, before entering the room, entering the professional kitchen, we could use VR, our knowledge of the VR, the available platforms of the VR, and still keep it in a kind of an easy to produce mode. So this is from our training kitchen in Haaga Helia in Helsinki, and what we have here is hotspots. So basically all the red arrows are hotspots that you can tap on, and it will take you closer to the microwave or a blender and cutter, dishwasher, the mixer, and it will give you a detailed instruction on how to safely use the device or the machine. The thing that Jed didn't mention is that during our project, we also learned that many of the content that we create are usable. So you can experience the same content with lower level of immersion, but still you can experience and you can consume the media that we have created in your mobile phone, in your laptop, in your iPad, or then you can upgrade gradually towards the high-end devices. So, and what Ralf mentioned in the very, very beginning was that we also tested most of our prototypes with the €7 or €9 Google Cardboards that someone might even not know that they exist because they were introduced 12 years ago, but still they work. And we tried different scenarios with different content and got the feedback from our students and also our colleagues from the faculty, and then we improved on those. And this is one of the examples that where we also easily can address the language barriers, I would say, for international students here in Helsinki. Also, most of our instructions are in Finnish, but with the help of machine translators, we can easily come up with a selection here that you have 10 different languages. And depending on your background, you just choose the language, whether it's Thai, whether it's Arab, whether it's Swedish or English or French, and then you get the same content, but it is in your native language. So the multiple uses in all of these scenarios, they are extremely good. And the fundamental idea is that all of my colleagues in Haaga Helia, they are able to produce this content. Like in chess, holographic chef example and prototype, all of you attendees, you are also able to do that with your own here. So it doesn't require specific devices. Can we jump on the next one? Because it kind of continues on this. This is another situation from the kind of educational perspective. How can you train your students to face difficult customer situations? So this is also done in a VR environment, but you can also use your laptop and still get the idea and actually train these situations. This is probably one of the most time-consuming prototypes that we had, because we wanted to create the storyline and also give multiple scenarios for the students to choose from. So here, for example, we have our colleagues from Dublin playing a difficult customer, and the person within the VR is the waiter facing the situation. And there are multiple complaints, like concerns that the customer expresses, and then the student has to choose from the scenarios. And behind the scenes, there is a logic. So if the student chooses, for example, I'm sorry that we could not find your seat at your requested table, then the story goes to a different path. Whereas if the student chooses the first one, the booking are handled by an online third party, then it goes to a different route. So it evolves, the story evolves, and that makes it really versatile on training situations. And it's really simple to produce when you have the story behind. And as mentioned, it was possible to do in a very low cost and easy. Jeb, would you like to, because I believe that this is closer to your specialty, even though this is the last one. Could you take on this?
Sure, no problem, Pasi. Thanks for that description of the others. And yeah, so this prototype of augmented reality hotel room. So with this one, we again used the same platform THETA, which was the most flexible and offered the most variety from all the platforms we used. The previous 360 video of difficult customer that Pasi showed used the Warp VR platform, which is specifically for 360 video, and does it very, very well. But THETA is very flexible and gives you a lot of variety. So you can do a lot. You can do 360 video. You can view it in a VR headset. You can also add in 3D models, which we're going to talk about now, and do various other things as well with THETA. So it's very flexible. And augmented reality hotel room, we were thinking of how could we bring a hotel room into a classroom in a very simple, cheap, and cost-effective way. You don't have to be a programmer to do any of this. And we love that about THETA because it really allows you to manage 3D content in a very simple way. And what we have a 3D model, our immersive expert in UIB, David, who's on the call, I think. This was his prototype. And he's a specialist in that area. And however, you don't need to be a specialist to create this yourself. You can really create it just from scratch. And all he's done is we've got a 3D model of a bed, and we've searched for 3D models on 3D platforms like TurboSquid and Sketchfab. You can get free 3D models or paid for ones. Just like you download a file, you download the 3D model, and you upload it into THETA. And then you sort of add it into a space, as you would call it, drop in the 3D model, and then maybe decorate it, add in some text, add in buttons. You can see he's got buttons on the left there. And the aim of this prototype was to show students in a classroom, to illustrate to them what is the difference between a 5-star, 4-star, and a 3-star hotel room? How does the bedding look? Or how do the pillows look? Or the Egyptian cotton sheets? Or whatever, specific detail there was in a 5-star room. How does that compare to a 3-star room and so forth? So you can see there's 3 buttons in those red buttons on the top left with a blue button at the bottom. And he's clicked on the blue button, which is the luxury, and you can see the luxury bed is now pitched up in the view of your, so again, it's the view of your phone, but you can now walk around this bed in 3D. You can look at the bed, at the pillow from different angles. And, it's funny when you show this to students in class, they all zap the QR code and then they're walking around the class. So movement, we found during the pandemic, is a big thing with education. Instead of sitting behind a laptop for the whole day, get them moving. And this prototype was very effective at that. And it also definitely was one of the highest in terms of engagement levels when we researched it. Difficult customer, Dublin will be happy to know, because they made it was the highest engagement level that we got across the student feedback that we received across the 4 institutions. And this was the second. So AR Hotel Room was a very successful prototype. It met the learning outcomes. And it is a bit more of a difficult prototype to create. So we graded our prototypes in terms of complexity. The easiest was Holographic Chef. The second easiest was Matterport. And then this was probably one of the hardest. Alongside 360 video, difficult customer, and the kitchen outlet were also less difficult than this. So this, I say, was probably the hardest to do. And the hard part is creating the buttons on the red buttons and getting to, as you click a button, a new 3D model appears. So you click one button, then the 3-star bed appears. Then you click the other button, and a 4-star bed appears. And it's just linking a 3D model to a button. And it's actually simple, but I thought it was pretty difficult. But that's the AR Hotel Room, guys. And the beautiful thing here, guys, you are really unlimited to what objects you can drag into this. So you can find 3D models of anything. You can, if you go to a site like Luma AI, you can just take photos from different angles of an object, upload it, and it creates a 3D model for you. You can use LiDAR on your iPhone 13 Pro and above to create a 3D model immediately as well of most objects, and even get paid if you want to get other people to use your 3D models. So, we're really limitless in terms of what you can do. Obviously, the hard part is interaction. So viewing a 3D model is easy to do, but to get, the pillow to fall off the bed is difficult to do that. There's programming involved there. So we focused on low-tech, cost-effective, easy to make, simple prototypes, and that's sort of the way we went about it. And before I talk for too long, one more thing is disability. So when we did research, we had a student in Hotelschool The Hague who said, when I looked at the AR hotel room, my dad is actually disabled, and when we go into a book a hotel for the family, we have to find the distance, how far the bed is from the wall, so there's enough space for him to move around. And she said this would actually help him, because as you can see, David has put in 24-meter squares and 6-meter distances there, and you can walk around and look at it, and get a sense of how big the space is. So yeah, that's the last part of AR hotel room.
So next we're going to focus on the manuals, and Dan will just talk us through what we've done with the manuals, just as an example.
Okay, thank you very much, Ralf, and thank you very much to Speakers-Pasi for the lead into this. So what we did, we developed a number of manuals to assist people in using the prototypes. We call them cookbooks, because the basic idea is like a little recipe that would guide you through it. And the idea is to assist lecturers and trainers to incorporate this technology into their lectures and into their classroom. Now, what we tried to do was produce the manuals, or cookbooks, that are not sort of overloaded with details. They're usually only about 4 or 5 pages. They're relatively straightforward to work your way through, and they give you a very good idea. And you can dip in and out of them as you become a little stuck or anything like that. The manuals, though, also have links to assistance like video tutorials and so on to help you in case you do get stuck, or in case you need a little bit more detail on it. Now, if you go to the website, you will find the manuals there. as I say, there are 4 or 5 pages each. And then underneath that, you will find a little section called Train the Trainer. And within the Train the Trainer section, there are also step-by-step guides and editing in both in Vector and in Warp VR. So that they're good to complement the manuals. Just in producing the manuals, we try to strike a balance between enough information, but not too much, to avoid the overload. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. We've been constantly updating these, so it is actually work in progress. So if at a later date you're using these and you have any suggestions or ideas, please feel free to get in touch with us and make a couple of suggestions. We'd love to hear from people. So do have a look at them, scan that code, it'll bring you to the manual section, and have a look at the manuals, and then I say underneath that, another little section which has got step-by-step instructions in editing in both Vector and in Warp VR. Okay, that's just a quick overview of the manuals.
Excellent. So, and then as part of the project, folks, thanks, Dan. As part of the project, we also organized a trainer session for lecturers. So essentially the idea was that we picked, well, we didn't pick, people volunteered in the partner universities that form part of the project to be trainers in their own institutions. So we flew those people to Finland, to Haaga, Helia, where they all received training to become a trainer for other colleagues in their home universities. So Jay is just going to explain a little bit about what the guys did during the trainer. And in fact, Haaga Helia also gave those people a couple of ECTSs for this training course that they did. Actually, they're not finished yet, so they're still in the process of doing it. So they didn't do it for nothing. So Jay, I just hand over to you, and you can just go through it quickly. Thanks.
Thanks, Ralf. And before we talk about the train, I really want to give a shout out to the group who attended from the 4 institutions. What a lovely group of human beings we had who joined us in Haaga Helia. It was absolutely beautiful 3 days that we enjoyed. And yeah, it was really a special group. And what we covered in those 3 days was basically, it was a maker education style workshop. So it was all about, getting the hands dirty. How can we make stuff that, and play with these prototypes, make mistakes, fail, just a quick and dirty prototyping approach. So that's the style we took when we made the prototypes in phase 2 of this project. And we used the same sort of philosophy when we started the 3-day session. So we had lecturers from the UIB, Mallorca, Hotelschool The Hague, Finland, and Dublin who came through. And yeah, there's the lovely photos there of the group. And you see the middle photo, there's David there with his thumbs up, and all the colleagues from the various universities, but a wonderful group. We obviously had a lot that we had planned for them. You can see the colleague Jia Yan from Hotelschool on the left with the Oculus MetaQuest 3. So we were showing off some higher end applications, but we didn't show how to make content for MetaQuest. We also, broadened the horizons and showed, other examples of XR. You can see on the right is the box at Haaga Helia, which was Pasi's baby for many years, and he's an expert in caves and immersive caves, which involve projectors shooting onto the wall to create an immersive experience versus a headset or versus a mobile phone or a tablet. But coming back to what we did specifically for the course. So we showed you the 4 prototypes now, we did the same, and we then went through over the 3 days, different sessions. So maybe 2 to 3 hour sessions for each prototype. So Vector, a holographic chef, Matterport, difficult customer, Warp VR, and so on. And within each session, we brought out our beautiful manuals, which we're very proud of. And, we had one trainer like David would take everyone through the augmented reality hotel room because he was the specialist in that. And we'd give them the task of making something within that class as well. So it was maybe a short lecture, then a maker prototype making session. And we continued like that in 2 to 3 hour slots each prototype over the 3 days. And we got students or lecturers and professors who attended to present on the last day to us. And of course, we were Dragon's Den style critical panelists trying to improve their projects. So that was a 3 EC course, those 3 days that they attended. We also had some offsite visits to a few related innovation centers and so on in Haaga, Helia. But on the whole, it was all about building the skills to make content creation. This is the problem with VR and AR and XR at the moment, is content creation. And we've here focused on low technology, cost-effective and easy to make prototypes. And we are so happy to say that we saw innovation from these groups. We saw prototypes being made around sustainability using Matterport. We saw Warp VR applications, very innovative ideas being created from these teachers and from these lectures. So my point is that in such a short space of time, we had these lectures making really cool experiences. That if I think they can do it, anyone can do it. Ralf, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, I suppose, sorry, we've been going on for a bit here. I suppose just to try to explain to you what all this is about. But I suppose we just want to give you some feedback as well on our, I suppose, 2-year experience trying to introduce these kind of technologies into our classrooms. And obviously, as you can imagine, one of the key barriers initially certainly was the tech know-how and the knowledge and skills to do it. But in fact, I think it was more mental than anything else, because once you start kind of looking into it, like the stuff isn't that hard to use at all. Certainly, I had never seen a 360 camera before in my life, and or any of that software. And look, once you kind of start using it and you overcome the initial fear, it's actually relatively straightforward. Okay. The other key barrier is obviously you have to kind of think about, okay, how am I going to implement this? So the content creation. For some people, it might also be software, hardware availability. But the funny thing is, we all work in universities. So, and the chances are that there is already people in another department, in another section of your university, who already have a green screen, who already have a tripod, who already have a 360 camera. You might already have a GoPro sitting at home that you got, last year for Christmas and never used it, and now this is the opportunity to actually do so. So some of these barriers aren't really barriers, so resistance to change amongst ourselves really is one of the key issues. But once you overcome that resistance, you're flying it. And of course, the resistance is obviously tied to the fear of the unknown, but the reality is only unknown to us, because if I look at my own kid, spending most of his time, I'm exaggerating now, but spends a lot of his time on the Xbox, and see, the kids nowadays are already used to this stuff. They're already used to AR, VR, and high-tech sort of resolution on wearing goggles and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? So, and at the end of the day, in the TikTok generation that only has a 30-second attention span, you have to come up with stuff to get them excited in the classroom. Otherwise, they will switch off after 30 seconds. So that's really key. The other issue is, I suppose, with this stuff is usability or the perceived usefulness of it. And look, it's not going to replace any of us, in terms of teaching, but it's certainly reintroducing some new exciting elements in it. And yes, there is a time investment involved also, but again, I suppose once you kind of develop something in the first instance, then we can use it again. Right. And the other good thing is that what we found is if you get students involved in actually producing the stuff, so the students are actually making it. So there's lots of different learnings all going on at the same time. Right. Suppose just moving on from here. So there's lots of different benefits for using it in the classroom. Obviously, student engagement is one of them. All the students already have a mobile phone in the back pocket. So you could just say, pull out your phone, scan the QR code, and there's your hologram. There's your Effectar, there's your Warp VR. So they already have the technology in the back pocket. The other good thing is that there's a lot of life experiences that we can't or couldn't access, certainly during COVID, but now there might be financial issues and whatever, but you can bring all these real life experiences into the classroom, so you can do your field trip off Hong Kong, but you do it in your classroom. You don't have to go to Hong Kong. Obviously, it would be nice, but some people can't afford that. So you can bring it all into the classroom, might be much handier. Yeah. So you can have lots of different types of experiences. You can be in the middle of a very busy, super hotel, busy restaurant in the middle of Paris or whatever, right? So you can bring all of these experiences into the classroom, which you otherwise probably wouldn't be able to do. The other good thing is that we're dealing with lots of different types of learners in the classroom. So all our students have different ways of learning. So using these different types of technologies will allow many different types of learners to kind of be able to visualize theory, different experiences, different concepts that we use in a very sort of abstract form in many ways in the classroom, and visualize these. So it aids their learning. And also, another key thing is that these little activities that might last 5-10 minutes in the classroom, but they can be a real discussion opener for students in the classroom. So therefore, you're creating more analysis, more discussion in the classroom. Okay, well, how can you embed it in education in the classroom? Well, we've already shown you some of the technologies, but the key is, maybe attend a trainer session or go into YouTube or whatever. Then choose a topic and then experiment with it. Get students to do it, as I mentioned. Keep it simple, yeah? The KISS principle, okay? So don't aim to do something that's super high quality, using super high tech and all of that. Take it step by step, right? If you're starting yoga today, you're not trying to do a handstand on the first day and crash, right? That wouldn't be good, okay? So it's the same with this type of technology. So you build up slowly, right? The other good thing is, we've already started to kind of, with our trainer session, to create a learning community. So find other people within your organization, within your university, who are aiming for the same stars, and then you can work together, okay? Also attend workshops like this, also host your own showcases within your universities. What's also very, very important is to continue to hold student evaluations to give you feedback on what you've been creating. That's what we were doing, and we found that super helpful, because as Jay said, initially some of the stuff we produced, the students didn't find it that attractive, okay? So you just have to keep working on this. So develop your prototypes and keep improving upon it. So it's really using the design thinking methodology. I might hand over to Che, who is going to just focus briefly before we open up for Q&A on some of the key findings, maybe from the case studies. Che, would that be okay?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just fly through it in a minute if I can. So yeah. From our iterative cycle, we did 2 testing cycles with the prototypes. The 3 main findings we find at the top, and we did focus groups and surveys with students after they tried our prototypes in the classroom, was interaction. They want interaction. So, being able to interact with an object or a person, they wanted more interaction than we gave them, actually. So they asked us for more interactivity within the VR, AR experiences. So that's a big thing. Number 2 was gamification. So some of the platforms we use, like EuroCHRIE, they do have gamification sort of functionality, but very basic. So you have like a 5-star rating if you did well in the difficult customer, if you followed the right decision path in the decision tree. But they wanted more. They wanted, I think, if you think of Duolingo and gamification on that level, they probably want a lot more of that type of rewards and leadership scoreboards, leaderboards, and things like that. A big one was 3D, not 2D. We found that with the kitchen outlet one, where they given a tour of a kitchen, that they, when you showed a 2D video of how to use a blender or a mixer, they didn't enjoy seeing a 2D video within a 3D environment. So if you're doing 3D or 360 video, stick with 360 or 3D objects and experiences rather than go put a 2D video into a 3D environment. And then lastly, I mentioned the engagement scores. Also equipment. So Google Cardboard, as Pasi mentioned earlier, is €7 a pop. And if you compare it to the MetaQuest 4, which is MetaQuest 3, which is €500, a lot of students were asking for the high-end headsets. They wanted to see the high-end headsets in our classrooms, although we could give them a fairly good experience with the Google Cardboard. So they do want the high-end headsets in the classroom. Health concerns is a big one. Motion sickness is often a big problem with VR. and we can talk about it more in discomfort. And we saw that in our research findings. Yeah, I mean, there's various ways around that. We're giving a variety of mediums to experience it. And I think I'll leave it there for now.
Super. Thanks, colleagues. Sorry, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but of course we're limited in time with these webinars, and we want to be conscious of everybody's time. So I'm not sure if audience, if you have some questions for us in relation to the kind of things we were talking about. Hopefully it wasn't all too foreign and too complicated in terms of what we're talking about. We were trying to, I suppose, bring it closer to you. I know some of the people in the audience, I do know that you're already using some of this technology. But look, if you have any questions, please let us know. I might just stop sharing my screen at this stage so I can see you better. So if you have any questions, pop them into the chat or unmute yourself. Either way works for us.
Ralf, would you be able to answer this question? Kader has asked in a chat that are they, as the other schools, able to use this content and the program? And probably the second part is for Che about the existing templates.
Yeah, so yeah, well, that's actually a very good question. So yes, look, it's a European project, so it's all funded by the EU. So it's really, it is there for sharing. That's the whole purpose of it. So whatever we develop is up on the website, and like anybody can use it, can share it, duplicate it, whatever you want. And hopefully as many people as possible will use it. Of course, the technologies themselves, like Warp VR or Vector, they're proprietary. We don't have a license that we can hand out to people, but there's other technologies like freeware also available that does the same thing. Maybe not as fancy, maybe not as easy, but still they do exist as well. So with some Googling, you can find equivalents to these pieces of software. But as I said, look, particularly if you're working in a larger university, chances are you might have a digital marketing department or digital communications department or journalism or whatever. They might already be using those types of technologies, and so the software might already be there somewhere. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, maybe I can add in to that as well, to take that other question mentioned by Pasi, the adaptability of the manuals to your specific institution, your course that you are teaching, and the learning outcome and the learning goal, because that's where it starts, the design at least. And we designed our manuals, which I put out here, in line with it being a generic experience. So the difficult customer, I use that as an example, is the way we written the manual is that so you can create any soft skills experience from it. So while the difficult customer is an example to show you, and that's what we made, you can create a leadership scenario on an angry team member in a meeting. I don't know. But using the same platform, the same decision tree, the same methods and techniques and processes that we used. So that's how we've designed this, so you can create what you want to create. Of course, each platform has its, it plays within a certain boundary of what you can do with it. Like with Vector, there's benefits and limitations, and with Warp VR, there's benefits and limitations in Matterport. So it depends on your scenario. Then you choose your technology platform, then you access the manual and start the design thinking process of doing speaking to lecturers and so on about learning goals. Does that help? Is that Carter? Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Please fire away.
Don't be shy.
Supposed to be hospitality, right? And another thing, while we're waiting for questions, is I forgot to mention the 7 EC course. So after the 3 EC train, the train at 3 days we had in Helsinki, we are currently doing a 7 EC that Ralf mentioned, which is a 10-week course, where after the initial sort of, introduction to the prototypes and maker education workshop, now you make something for your own course, and we coach you once a week. Daniel did one yesterday. 2 hours a week, you come into a Teams meeting and we coach you through the same process you covered earlier, but now you're designing specific content for your course in your institution. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And we're very flexible with how we're running it. Also, after we ran the train at 3 ECs in Helsinki, our 6 lecturers from HTH, we now position them as champions of AR/VR in our institution, and they hopefully spread the word organically like that after the train.
Ralf, perhaps I'm in here now, because it seems to, I've been reading the messages, and there's 1 or 2 people are having to go now, and they're actually paying great compliments to you and the rest of the team, for what they've actually seen. And I was lucky enough to see the live demo in Vienna, a couple of months back, and I was overwhelmed with the way it actually made sense. That you could actually sort of take, and you put these cameras on me, and if somebody like me can take it in, I'm sure anybody can take it in. But it was really overwhelming the way you got it across very, very quickly. And I was talking to my eldest son, who's a superintendent in the police here in the UK, but he's head of a training college, and he said, "I've got to do that, because we can make a pub. We have a pub, in our training school. We have a riot separation, but this is a cheaper way and more effective way of doing it." So, I was hit immediately by the application which that could make to kitchens, and the difficult customer. Of course, I come from Marks and Spencer's, and we used to have many different difficult customers from time to time. I think it's a very exciting development, and I'm really privileged that you've been able to put this show on together. We are recording it, and we will be putting it out to the wider audience. So I guess you'll get a lot more detailed questions, fairly soon. But on behalf of all of us here, I'd just like to say a terrific thank you for the amount of work you four have put into presenting today. It's much appreciated.
Thanks very much, Paul. Yeah, so I suppose just in the interest of time, everybody, you might give us a shout if you have additional questions. I think my details are still up on the EuroCHRIE website as well, as one of the area consultants, so is Pasi's and Paul's, of course. And equally so, touch base with us via the THETA website. There's loads of information there. And as we said, we will, we've recorded this presentation, and we'll put it up on the EuroCHRIE website along with the PowerPoint slides and all of that. Okay, so thank you all. Thanks for the questions, and thanks for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules. Have a great day.